Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of Marvel Studios' 36th film in the MCU, Thunderbolts. This film stars Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, Wyatt Russell, Louis Pullman, David Harbour, Hannah John Kamen, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. This is a Jack Schrader directed film, and this film follows a group of antiheroes who are caught in a deadly trap and forced to work together on a dangerous mission. This film was super high on my anticipated list, especially being as though it's a Marvel film. It's a superhero film. It's a comic book adaptation. And to put it kindly, the MCU has not been performing at its best. You know, we're off the heels of Captain America Brave New World, which is rather divisive, I guess you could say. I know people who enjoyed it. Me personally, I didn't like it at all. So it was disappointing, very disappointing for a number of reasons. So you kind of like, what's going on in the MCU? And prior to Captain America Brave New World, it hasn't been firing on all cylinders. And we're about to embark on this big giant Avengers film that's coming down the pike next year with Avengers Doomsday. And it's supposed to be a combination of everything that has taken place in this saga, in the multiverse saga, and it just hasn't been hitting. It doesn't have that same magic as the MCU had in the first saga, in the Infinity Saga, So I was really, really hoping, wishing and praying that Thunderbolts would drive it home. And I'm happy to report I loved this movie. This is Marvel at its best. This is the best Marvel Studios film since Endgame. And I mean in the sense of interconnected with this entire universe. It makes it feel like this is part of a bigger thing, as opposed to the other films that have come out in the last 2 to 3 years that it just felt like they were thrown out there to be thrown out there. This feels like it's part of a bigger world, even though this is a film that's more grounded. The characters are more grounded. There aren't any, well, there are some superpowered beings within the Thunderbolt group, with Bucky and Red Guardian and Ghost, even John Walker, but not to the sense to whereas they're like Hulk, and you have Thor, and you know what I'm saying, who's basically a god. You have him in part of the team, and it doesn't have that. These characters are flawed, deeply flawed characters, and if you follow these characters throughout the MCU, this ain't the first time you've seen all these characters. When we first meet them, they're not at their best. Most of these characters were either villains or antagonists in other shows or movies. Now they're coming together and they're becoming heroes here, and reluctantly, may I add, but I liked how it was done. And now I do have some issues with it. There is a couple of issues that I'm going to touch on, and this is non-spoiler, by the way. Probably should have started off the show by saying that. It's non-spoiler. I'm not going to get into spoilers here, so don't fret. I'm not going to spoil anything. This was the best MCU film since Endgame. And yes, we've had some really good movies to come in between. Guardians of the Galaxy 3, the Spider-Man movie, Shang-Chi. Those were excellent. Those were really good movies. And like I said, they were good movies within, but this did something that I've been craving, and I didn't know I was craving it since the first saga. This movie made you connect to these characters. You really got a good sense of their background, their struggle, their internal fight, not just them fighting against this uh, being or whatever, but it was really a fight within themselves. And you have to have strong character actors, strong actors, period, and actresses who can pull this off. And this was led by the great Florence Pugh. Florence Pugh is, look, I know she gets her flowers. A lot of everybody says that she's an exceptional actress. And, there's no way you can fight that. That's probably the only argument I'll ever get into involving subjective subject matter such as film. Because Florence Pugh, I've seen her in every type of movie there is. I've seen her in a comedy, I've seen her in drama, I've seen her in action, I've seen her in, I mean, everything you can think of she's been a part of, and she knocked it out the park. Even if the movie downright sucked, she didn't. She walks away from every project unscathed because she gives it her all. This woman is amazing. Huge fan of hers. Not to mention I have a slight crush on her as well. But that's besides the point. This woman held this movie together. This is Yelena's movie. Yes, it's Thunderbolts, but this is her movie. She carries this film. We follow her journey through from the beginning to the end of this movie, and it was a fun ride to go on, an emotional ride to go on. And what makes this such an amazing achievement in a Marvel movie, it tackles the subject of mental health, dealing with anxiety, dealing with depression, dealing with all of these afflictions that you, me, and everybody else that you come in contact with deal with. Normal human emotions. We deal with these mental health issues, past trauma, family trauma, when you was a child, stuff like, I mean, all of it put in this movie, and is not done forcefully. It's not fed to you. It's not preachy. It is just displayed in such a marvelous way, and kudos to Jack Strider for directing a marvelous film. In the midst of all of that, yeah, we get superhero fights, we get special effect extravaganzas and all this here. It is mind-blowing how well this was constructed. Along with Florence Pugh, everybody else did an amazing job. Every actor here stepped up to the plate. I don't want to shortchange them, but there are a couple of them I do want to point out. Along with Florence Pugh having just another phenomenal performance, you got to shout out Wyatt Russell here, who plays John Walker. If you watched The Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Disney Plus, that's where that character was introduced. U.S. agent. He had a good role on that show, and I'm not poo-pooing on his performance there, but here in this movie, it was so much. I often wondered when they first announced this film, and it was okay, Wyatt Russell is returning as John Walker. I'm like, why? Because he is the most unlikable character you could ever have in a movie, TV show, anywhere. And I'm like, why? How can you redeem this character? They found the way to redeem this character from what we saw from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and made him one of the best characters in this film. Wyatt Russell here, man. There were moments in this movie where he was doing something, and all I could see was Kurt. All I could see was his dad, man. he really he really channeled his dad on a couple of them scenes. I was hit with his facial expressions and stuff like that. I'm like, man, Kurt did a good job with this one. And this was a good performance by Wright Russell. The other standout here, Lewis Pullman, man. Another Nepo baby, I guess you could say. Well, I'm not guessing. That is the son of Bill Pullman. And Lewis Pullman, I've seen him in a couple of things. He was in Top Gun Maverick. He was also in Salem's Lot, which came out last year. Pretty decent actor. Once again, not anybody who leaps off the page or off the screen as somebody like, oh man, Lewis Pullman's in this movie. I gotta go see it. He's not that guy, but I think after this movie, you probably will. Lewis Pullman had to pull, no pun intended, from a lot of emotion in this movie. He went around the world with emotions. He was funny. He was deeply flawed, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. I mean, he had so much trauma within him, and he's this superpowered being with all of this mental health issues. And the movie did an excellent job of showing how somebody with all that power, not everybody can handle that if you're not mentally stable enough, and that goes true in every walk of life. I mean, we see it now in Washington, D.C. But he did a phenomenal job. I wasn't expecting much from that character. Honestly, he was in this movie more than I thought. I thought he was going to be in a piece of it all. I know that the movie was going to center around his character of Bob. And I just thought it was going to be, a few scenes here or there. But no, he's in this movie quite a lot. And you can probably say he's the co-lead, if that's even possible in an ensemble film. But his character, man, boy, because I didn't follow Sentry in the comics like that. I've read an issue or two, but that character really didn't connect with me. And so I never was oh man, Sentry can do this, and this. I knew of his character. I know what he's capable of doing, and the movie did that. The movie actually hyped it up to 11. I was like, my God, Sentry is a monster. But yeah, Lewis Pullman, man, phenomenal. David Harbour was great as the comic relief, and playing Red Guardian. And it was a scene in here with him and Florence Pugh. Once again, no spoilers, but that scene with him and Florence Pugh, I was faking it in that movie. I was like, okay, hold it, hold it together. It was so emotional, man. It was so well done. Oh my God. The action, really good action in this movie. As I said, this is grounded. Is a lot of grounded fight choreography. It wasn't all that shaky cam foolishness. It was a it was a lockdown camera doing a lot of in-camera work here that I'm so happy. I was so happy to see that. Now it did get special effectsy at times, of course. I mean, it's a Marvel movie, so you're gonna have that. But it was a good balance. It was a perfect balance between in-camera and digital effects. Also, before I get too far away from the acting, I gotta give another shout out to Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Valentina. Never was a fan of that character. In the films, on the TV shows, when she popped up, I thought she was a waste. I thought she was a waste because Julia Louis-Dreyfus is a fantastic actress. I mean, Seinfeld, Veep. I mean, she is amazing. And so when she became a part of the MCU, I was like, okay, That's a bold choice there. For Valentina, but hey, I'll rock with it, man. This was the first time I enjoyed her character. I really enjoyed her character in this movie. This is probably the closest they have gotten to Valentina Allegra de Fontaine to the comics than they did in any other depiction of this character, no matter where she popped up in. Whether it was Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, which I don't even know why she was in that. You know, in other shows where she popped up at, I was like, wow, they are really wasting Julia Louise Dreyfus. Well, I guess they were saving it for this film because she brought it, man. Oh my God, she brought it. I loved her in this movie. Uh, my flaws. Here's my flaws. Number one, the way the group got together, the way they came together was so clicheous. It was so uh predictable, man. It was like, I don't know, it just didn't have that effect. I was hoping for something more poignant to, as a reason why they came together as a group, but it just didn't. It didn't work. That part didn't work. Now that was the beginning. Now when they really became a team, quote unquote, at the end, now that was fire. That that I loved. I got emotional. I got emotional again. It was two parts of this movie where I got emotional and had to fight back tears. And it was the scene between Red Guardian and Elena, and the scene when they became officially the Thunderbolts. I was like, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? But it was fire then. But the first initial meetup between them, nah, it didn't work for me. The second thing, and my last thing really, that I didn't too much like was the villain. And I say villain loosely because, well, like I said, I can't spoil it. I can't get into it without spoiling. So I'll just say I didn't like the villain. And it sucks that I can't really elaborate on it. But I'll just say I wish they would have kind of set the seeds, just a few more seeds throughout the film, to whereas we got this bigger thing that happened at the end. It's fine. I know where they were going. I got where they were going, and I rolled with it. I mean, I accept it for what it is. I'm not hating it. It doesn't affect the grade of this film, but it was just, I don't know. It was, man. I can't do it. I can't do it. But anyways, those are my only two flaws. Everything else about this movie absolutely worked. The pacing was amazing. This movie is 2 hours and 6 minutes long, and it didn't feel like it. I felt like I was there for an hour. I was mad. I was like, that's it. That's it. I want more. I want more of it. And speaking of more, if you're going to see it, there are two post credit scenes. Two. One in the middle and one at the very, very, very end. And the one at the very, they can keep the one in the middle, but the one at the end, please don't miss that one. That one is huge. I'll just leave it at that. But Thunderbolts, brought to us by Marvel Studios and the folks over there at Walt Disney, gives a letter grade of a B plus, strong B plus. It is really good, man. I am so happy. I'm so proud of Marvel. I'm so proud of them. They did awesome. It actually got me hyped up for the Fantastic Four, because now I can see a path forward. Before I couldn't. I couldn't see a path forward with all of those other releases, uh, Captain America Brave New World. It felt like a brick wall. It felt like we hit a brick wall after that movie. But this opened, Thunderbolts opened so many doors to this expand universe of Marvel. And, that's what we used to get when this franchise first started. And that feeling is back. It feels like that feeling has returned to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But that's my feelings on Thunderbolts with the asterisk. And trust me, that asterisk is explained in the movie. I want to know your feelings on Thunderbolts if you checked it out. And if you are planning to check it out, let me know. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for the review of Thunderbolts. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.